Hello and welcome back to another video as we dive into the Destiny Grimoire Anthology Volume 2. Making our way pretty far so far. We're about nearing the end here on the second last chapter, I believe. Hello again. I've got a different camera angle this time. Took a little bit of messing around with, but we've managed to kind of figure that out. I can see myself over there. But yeah, managed to kind of figure it out here a little bit. It's better. I feel like at least this way it's kind of focused just in this corner. Don't have to see the rest of the room in the back and see my Nintendo 64 back over there. The side of the desk, etc. So it's not a bad little setup, but that camera is just hanging off of a coat hook. So got to use what you got. Anyways, continuing on here, we are in chapter 8 currently. It's a longer one, and I think there's one more chapter after that. I didn't read ahead, but I did look at just to see what we've got left, because I'm hoping to get this all finished up before Beyond Light comes out, which is not very long from now. Keep thinking I have to look over there a little bit when now you're over there. But without further ado, we'll just continue on. By thy tongue be damned. Even here the whispers persist, faint but present. Excerpt from C.C. Lagrange's translations of Writings and Observations from the Tangled Shore, a fallen text. A dreg fell, left to die, a forgotten pirate set on a path toward salvation. His crew had raided the moon looking for ether. They found only death, and then he was alone. Hirax the small, Hirax the timid, the weak was lost to the depths of the hellmouth. A solitary scavenger down among the hollows where dead things dwell. How he survived is a story untold, an impossible tale known only to Hirax himself. In that secret is his strength. For poor, weak, pathetic Hirax came out of that hell as something other, still fallen, still alone, but changed by all he had seen and learned. His mind opened, set adrift through the wonders of all the nightmares he had never imagined. Some say he spent his time hidden in the shadows of that cruel land, scouring the mysteries of the world's grave. Others suggest he peered into a hateful shrine and found truth in the unutterable horrors whispered from the abyss. Truth is, only Hirax knows. Truth as simple as it is puzzling. Yes, he did. Scour the grave, hear the whispers. Only then could all that followed transpire. For a lowly dreg to rise from their docking to stand as a baron is rare enough, but that a fallen of any stature could crack the layers of understanding that barricade the known universe from the ascendant plane is more than improbable. It was impossible, until it wasn't. For Hirax succeeded where so few have. He crafted his own throne world and began a monstrous quest to expand his knowledge, etching its harshest truths upon his enemies, and his work has progressed unchecked. It is his name the children do not speak when sharing tales of the haunting of Nemesis. It is his blood that paladins and corsairs alike wish to spill for the slaughter at Gaspra. Hirax the twisted, Hirax ascendant, the mind-bender whose tongue is a weapon, whose experiments seek to unravel sanity and reshape imagination that his subjects may become other tools of his vile bidding. And so the warning spread. When the fallen who speaks in the language of the damned calls, do your best not to listen, for once his words take hold, your will shall fade, replaced by antithesis. And then, like that poor, weak, fallen dreg, you too will know darkness. You too will be alone. Just take a quick sip. Have a little sip from my Cuphead mug here. Got some coffee on. Continue on. Riddled with lies. Trust is your shield. Trust is your weakness. In the end, we all fall to betrayal. Excerpt from C.C. Lagrange's translations of Writings and Observations from the Tangled Shore, a fallen text. A simple riddle for you to consider. Only truth can conquer lies, but what is truth, and in whose eyes? What then of the butcher of Bamberga, What then of the Psyche Horde Slayer, the terminus of the Grey Legion, the sliver of the Shadowed Veil, the bandit of Old Bassa, the dire siren of Valion's Reprieve? What then of so many who are one, a single scourge, responsible for many varied tragedies? The trickster, the liar, silver-tongued Araskes, the wit, she who bartered with the spider and nearly cost him his life, she who swindled a dozen bounty hunters that she alone may profit. So many tales of Araskes' sleight of hand and tongue and mind, the enemy who has won battles where no battle was fought, who has killed more rivals than has ever risen to challenge her. What is known and unknown, none can say, and the sly prankster would have it no other way. Of all the barons marked by scorn, it is Araskes to fear, for her greatest weapon is the dissolution of truth. She will give you certainty only to reshuffle the deck. She will grant you your desire only to reveal its truly regret. If this realm can allow for gods, then she may be the first among devils, unknowable, unpure. Her tongue will cut you down long before your body falls. If you don't believe, if you find yourself questioning the depths of her deceit, ask yourself a simple question. Did you kill her? And if you did she die? If the answer is yes, her trap is set. If your answer is, it's okay, you don't have to say it. Maybe you will survive out among these wild shores longer than most, though maybe not as long as you'd like. Anguish tenfold. Be weary of those who would do harm, yourself included. Mind that you do not become undone. For once inflection is tinged with joy, you are not but a beast. And are we not more than that? Do we not strive for better? Excerpt from C.C. Lagrange's translations of Writings and Observations from the Tangled Shore, a fallen text. It was Rexus Vaughn who saw to the final days of the House of Wolves. With cold hatred he hunted and slaughtered their servitors until none remained, and thus a rabid house did fall. But Rexus Vaughn's rage was not sated, as the wolves alone were not the architects of his fury. All fallen who clung to the ritual of the house politics were his enemy, total and complete. It is told that he was starved as a young dreg. He watched in agony as others grew strong, while he and his closest brothers and sisters were kept low. They were unworthy, pathetic, unwanted. But Rexus was ever aware. He saw the lie of the Archon's worship, how servitors were revered upon a pedestal of godhood as a means to control the masses. Maybe there was a time when the fallen theology was one with greater concerns. No more. The house is fractured, at war with one another. Old graces long since neglected in favor of a more desperate purpose, survival. While cast low, Rexus found strength in his growing hatred. Only when he found common disdain among those twisted outcasts who could call themselves Scorned, who wore their hated derision as a badge of honor, did Rexus also find an outlet for his anger. His new brothers and sisters saw great value in his unchecked aggression. They were all a bit mad in their own right, all a bit twisted. But where others slipped toward insanity, Rexus' mind and intent were clear. The agony of a terrible death was his aim. The target of his wickedness, the very servitors he had been denied. The very machines that sustained the fallen. He would tear and slice and rend their metal into their hissing deaths, until their hissing deaths rang across the shore, the reef, the entire system. He would make all who do not stand with the scorned barons feel the anguish he once felt tenfold, and he would do so gleefully, watching the life drain from their eyes. A blind eye toward tomorrow. They who draw mustn't always draw first, for it is not speed that kills, but the eye, keen and sharp. So then, do not feel death. See it, know it, and it shall manifest upon the trigger's embrace. Another excerpt from C.C. Lagrange's translations of Writings and Observations from the Tangled Shore, a fallen text. Pirha, the phantom, Pirha, the blind, the fallen baron with the all-seeing eye and the cracked shot. The awoken link him to the legend, the ghost of Hellrise Canyon. Believing it was Pirha and Pirha alone who haunted the winding depths, picking off intruders and holding off corsair raiding parties as his fellow barons planned their violent reign in the maze of caverns near the canyon's heart. He was unseen during the Wolves' uprising, but many credit him with the assassination of the Queen's palace guard. None can verify, but each fell to a single shot, clean, precise, fatal. But how can a blind pirate who had been discarded and scorned by his house become the deadliest shot this side of Mars? This is where the Baron's true strength lies. They are each a devil worthy of your hate, but together they are so much more. Not simply devils, but hell itself, manifest, angry, and aggressive. Humors in legend merge to tell of the machinist's expert hand, the rifleman's cybernetic eye, and a link between his sight and the tracking systems on his rifle. What he sees, he hits. What he hits, he kills. There is evidence of Fallen giving themselves to technology, becoming more, as they marry their physical selves to enslaved mechanics. The mercenary Tannix is one example. More machine than Fallen now, an abomination in the eyes of traditional Fallen belief. The Splicers and their augmentation through Siva, a twisted experiment brought low by the mighty hand of the heroes of Iron. Is Pirha any different? The Barons and Tannix and the Splicers are each and all individual dangers, driven by their own ambition. They are more likely to wage war with one another than see their commonality. Yet are they not of a kind? Are they not evidence of something greater wending its way through the Fallen's dying culture? Are they not the warning signs of a new terrible evolution? One can only wonder and hope these horrid amalgamations of life and technology are simply outliers and not a promise of tomorrows yet to come. Just want to close this out here. It's kind of bright. The Ragged Valley Sprint. Keep getting ahead of myself here. I apologize. Many are lost to the shore's wayward ebb and flow. The shifting mass gives and takes, pulls and tears. The ground beneath ever uncertain, so tread carefully as other dangers distract. But death lingers, its grip loose but present, waiting to take hold, waiting to embrace all who walk these tangled lands. And yet another excerpt from C.C. Lagrange's translations of Writings and Observations from the Tangled Shore, a Fallen text. There's a cat. The Ragged Valley is long and harsh, and no valley at all. Not by traditional definition. Its hollow length runs between a series of lashed asteroids on the shore's far western edge. They call it a valley to be poetic, but in truth it is simply the chaotic space between massive rocks that scrap and smash into one another in a violent dance. The distances from mass to mass ebb and flow without warning, a constant, deadly repositioning of the landscape. That ever-changing hollow is the valley. Only the mad and desperate would dare run its length, with one exception. Yavix, the rider. The reason she made the run changes with the telling. You know she is neither mad nor desperate, but with her skills on a pike and killer determination. But the run itself, it's a legend as awe-inspiring as any Guardian's, save the fact Yavix is a wicked beast and better off dead. The story goes, she was running ether, or making off with lost Golden Age tech. Some say Clovis Bray science. Others tell it was drivers from a forgotten warmind. Or maybe she just dropped a Guardian and was running full throttle from a fire team set on revenge. A common theme this far out. Or was it pride? Did a captain or a Kel or an Archon challenge her ability to ride? Did Fickrel? After all, their relationship is complicated. None of that matters, not to me. Each version of the start is as interesting as the next, but the run itself, her ride through the gnashing jaws of death, most Guardians who have heard it dismiss it, don't want to give credit to one so infamous. The Scorned Baron with the blood on her hands, the loot in tow, and her burner set to top speed. But she deserves it. Don't believe me? Ask Marcus Wren. He wasn't there that day, but he'd heard tell and couldn't believe. So he made the run himself. 4 goes, no dice, 1 resurrection. 4 sparrows busted to rubble. Marcus Wren, the Sparrow Racing League champion and hero to speed junkies and race hounds citywide, couldn't sprint that valley. Too random, he said, too chaotic. Can't read the rock 1 minute to the next, can't read the angles. But he tried again, and on the 5th go, he scraped through a narrow as the collision hit. He'd made it. The impossible was possible, though he refused to admit Yavix could have done the same. Not that it mattered. That Wren had come out alive proved it could be done, and if it could, why not Yavix? Not that Yavix ever cared for validation, not yours, not Wren's, not any Guardians, not any Fallen's, not anyone's. She took pride in recognition from her brother and sister Barons, and no others. Truth tinkered. Out here, they who craft their own fate see tomorrow, while they who depend on faith rarely make it through today. Yet another excerpt from the writings and observations from the Tangled Shore. If you had not heard of the machinist before, know that others had. While her crimes may not live in infamy in the hearts of city dwellers, the reef and its awoken know all too well her long reign of terror. Alicris, the bandit, they call her. Alicris, the scourge, the scorned machinist, tinker lord of a houseless crew. But should those names be new to your ears, there are others who you trust who have felt the pain of her vile campaign. Ask your Arok of the machinist deeds. Ask him about the siege of Iran, the hijacked ship, its stolen contents, and its guardian protectors lost or captured at the hands of the Scorned. Speak to your vanguard of the soulless descent. More guardians felled and an armory stripped of its cash. The lowly dreg who challenged tradition only to be cast aside. The lowly dreg who found her own strength in a troubling bond with forsaken kin. She grew strong as an outcast, grew mean, then found her purpose with the guidance of a preacher of sorts and a new, more driven crew. Now then, the questions you must ask yourself. Had you known of the Baron's deeds? Had you heard tell of the machinist's crimes? Could you have changed the path tread from there to here, from yesterday to today? Better yet, your vanguard, your factions, your friends and allies, what all have they kept from you? If they spoke not of the Scorned Barons, if they issued no warning, is it because they simply did not see the full scale of the danger? Were they too distracted by wars within wars and interests of their own to issue the guidance needed for you to see the shore for the threat it has always been? Perhaps given guidance that may well have saved countless lives, or at least one life in particular. A Scorned Path. Surviving is a whole lot easier when your enemies are dead. It was Alicris the machinist who'd begun hoarding the servitors, and Rexus the hangman who slaughtered them at every turn, two allies driven by opposing forces. One science and the unmaking of faith, the other rage and its relentless push to destroy. There had long been tensions between the two, as Rexus had, more than once, slipped into the machinist's workshop to inflict himself on the servitors caged there. Fickrel, the fanatic, their spiritual leader and one-time Archon priest, watched patiently as their rivalry grew. We saw strength in their ire. Sketchy cat. We saw strength in their ire. We saw fire and fury, but also more, a new path forward. One that could join their passions and drive them further, a whole stronger than its warring parts. Fickrel waited, biding time as tensions rose and threatened to splinter the Baron's loyalties. Only when Alicris could take no more, on a night when she caught the hangman prepared to slaughter her latest haul of lesser servitors, did Fickrel step in. Fickrel motioned to Alicris and said, "Bring me a servitor." As Rexus hissed with anticipation, she hesitated, but Fickrel was patient. "Where is your trust?" Alicris released the servitor from its bondage. Fickrel motioned the servitor closer, then turned to Alicris. "You have gathered many, machinist, hundreds, maybe more. Our own supply, our life force fed by slaved mechanics." Alicris nodded to the servitor as it inched closer to the Archon's open arms, welcoming the once revered orb as one would a child. The other barons began to bark a rhythmic warrior's chant. "For all the value in your work, it is not enough to feed ourselves." Fickrel hugged the servitor. There was a tenderness to the embrace, a sorrow. "We must also starve our enemies, as you were once starved." With a blur, Fickrel's lower arms unsheathed and triggered a pair of polished, sparkling shock blades, as were we all. The servitor, still held with the clutches of the Archon's powerful upper arms, cried a shrill, digital wretch. Pain mixed with a confusion as the blades carved its outer shell and plunged deep into the core of its system. Ether hissed and sprayed. Fickrell released the machine's silent shell, and it clanged lifeless to the ground. He turned to Alecris. Do you see? Alecris smiled. She was ever the brightest among them, though her focus could lose clarity when she became frenzied. The Barons had long been trouble for the Awoken and fallen of the Reef, but that trouble had been limited to hit-and-run tactics. What Fickrell had just presented was a new way. Fickrell stepped to Rexus. Do you see? The brute barked in response. Kill them all. Fickrell laughed. Not all, Hangman, just the ones we do not need. The Barons cheered as Fickrell continued. Every servitor, any servitor, bound to a house is now a target, until none remain but those upon whom we feed. We are alike, trapped in death, a never-ending dance. Fickrell. The Scorned symbol there. A little thing. My cat is sketching out. He's just running around, making noises. Okay, I guess I'm just gonna leave it on that one because the next one's kind of go into some other stuff. It looks like, and we'll separate that into a separate video. If you've watched this far, thank you for watching. Feel free to leave me any feedback as I go see what's going on with my sketchy cat. He's looking at me and then running away. Overall, the reading today I feel like was not too bad. There's some room for improvement, of course. But we're just continuing on making progress here. So, as always, be safe, and thank you for watching.